Listen, if you're working with brands or in UX, then you need to be able to understand how to do a content audit. Now, a content audit is a key part of the research process. It's where you pull everything on a website, all the different content pieces, all the different pages, everything on the website into one place, and you make a list of everything going on so that you can better understand any redundancies, repetition, what's not needed, and also what the user needs. And research is fun, and this should be a fun process. It shouldn't be like an arduous task that you dread. So I'm going to be sharing my 5 top tips for you to how to run a content audit for yourself that's going to increase your confidence when it comes to doing this process. Let's get into it. My first tip is that content design is going to change your life, because it's so much more than just UX writing. It's so much more than just writing micro copy. Content designers are called designers because they're designing content for the user needs. So they're not just kind of going, oh, like, let me just write a long article. They're going, what is the user here to do? What are they on this website or, browsing for? What is their goal? They're doing loads of research into that. They're working out how to test whether their solution is valid, and they're also designing digital experiences like websites in collaboration with the product designer for the user needs. So they might design a whole web page for a user that has a learning difficulty, or to be super accessible, and choose the different types of content that work best. They would test it, they'd research it first, and then if it starts to increase SEO or boost conversion, they would know that their work has been validated. So content designers are experts in UX principles, they're experts in research and testing, and they also really understand content and users and what people are looking for and what people want to get out of that content. So if you're looking at a client's website and there's like 20 pages of content plus, you've got quite a big website to deal with. So how you break this down is by basically making a list of all the different pieces of content that are on this website. Everything from like the navigation, what's in the navigation menu, to the different pages, to the different sub pages, but I'm going to be talking about that in a second. What I really want to talk about is how to get into a content designer mindset. So when people are browsing a website, they're not just kind of like lazing around reading an article because they've got loads of time on their hands. They're usually there because they're trying to get something done. They're looking for something to buy. They're comparing something. There could be many reasons. But usually if it's like a product website, they want to kind of understand the brand and the product, and they want to find the right solution that fits their needs. Or if it's an article, they want to get to the juicy bits, the ones that help them understand something. So when you're thinking about like heuristics, and heuristics are sort of mental shortcuts that people take, they take these mental shortcuts to solve a problem, and that's what content designers have to understand. So you've got to understand that people are here to quickly take stuff away, to quickly understand something, to quickly browse, to quickly compare. They don't want to be wasting all their time like sifting through your long article. So what type of content is best for what you're really doing here? Tip number 2 is to find the best type of content to fit the user needs. And so you have to actually understand what the user needs first. So for example, a client project I worked on, a knitting company. So they ran a bunch of knitting workshops. They also sell knitting products. They sell yarns, they sell fabrics, and they sell wool, and they basically are a community for knitters. So what the user is here to do depends on who the user is. They've got different user personas, right? But if the user is here, if one type of user is here to purchase a piece of yarn for their next project, what content are they going to want to see around that? Are they going to want to see a video? Probably not. Are they going to want to compare different yarns? Possibly. So you might be thinking what is the best way for them to be able to compare these different yarns? Is it based on weight? Is it based on, color? Is there a filter option? This is all part of content design. They might also be here to join like a workshop or a knitting class. So what are they going to want to see? Probably a video, probably some sort of like showcase of like what you'd get in that workshop, probably also some testimonials, some case studies, some like written text, you know, from previous customers. And they're probably going to want to see like a breakdown of the workshop, like maybe some bullet points of the price, the location, maybe a map might be quite fun. So when you're thinking about content design, all these things, these different formats are content. Content is not limited to just text. Content can be imagery, it can be video, it can be bullet points, it can be FAQs, it can be carousels, it can be, you know, drop downs, it can be, you know, anything is content if it's got information in it. So you want to be asking questions like, is this the best way to present this content to the user given their specific need? Is there a more accessible way to present this information? Working with like a designer perhaps, like to make it easier for them to sort of, you know, compare a product, for example. But also like, is it in the most simple format for this website? And is this on brand? I'll come on to that a bit later. So my tip number 3 is that when you're thinking about content and doing your audit, which I'll go into the process in number 5, but when you're thinking about doing your audit, you want to be thinking about the types of content and whether those types of content are on brand. So for example, if your brand is like, you know, super loud and there's like heaps of personality and you've just got like loads of written article content that just goes on and on down the page and sort of drags down, like bores the user, is that right for the brand? Is that content really on brand? I don't think so. Could you do that content in a more visual, fun and engaging way that would match the brand tone of voice? Yeah, you might want to look at video, imagery, carousels. You might, you know, get rid of half the actual written text on the page and just make it into visuals. So you want to be making sure that every piece of content is like suited to your brand. Or here's another example. If you're like a tech brand, for example, and a lot of your content is really focused on comparing products, but actually you're making, you know, readers read these really long articles, like editorial articles comparing the products. Is that the best content for your tech brand? You know, tech is meant to be simple, it's meant to be like easy to use, it's meant to be accessible, it's not meant to be complicated. So perhaps it might be better to have like the comparison tables that you can quickly see, you know, those ticks, like does it have this feature, does it have that feature, rather than making someone read through this whole page-long article. So on the other hand, if you're kind of an editorial brand, then maybe those articles like really give across your brand personality. Maybe you've got different writers and that actually fits your brand. So tip number 3 is all about making sure that the type of content is on brand. Number 4, so I'm talking about doing a content audit solo at the moment, but actually what if you've got a really big team? What if your client has like several different people in the team and they all are quite sort of like have a really like strong relationship with the brand. They want to have a lot of say in this process and they understand why certain web pages are there. They have a lot of information about the product. What happens if you're in that state, or if you've got a massive website with many different pages? Well, one way to do a content audit is actually in a workshop, and I'll explain why this is. So I ran a workshop with a client called Stolen Stitches. There was probably about 8 people in it, and the reason was because the founder, the CEO, and her team knew so much about the products. It got quite technical. I needed a bit of input from them about like priority and sort of like what we could maybe shift around in terms of the site as well. And I just also wanted them to sort of feel like we were working together on this. I wasn't just kind of like redoing their website without their input. So actually a workshop worked really well in this instance, and I'll just show you a little bit of sort of how it looked. I actually ran it in, I think it was Miro, but it could have been FigJam. I'll figure it out. I think it might be Miro. But we basically, me and my design partner, just kind of laid out all the content on the site, and then we kind of talked about it as a group, and we were like, is this piece of content relevant? Like, where have we got this piece of content elsewhere? Oh yes, it's over here as well. So there's duplications, there's repetitions going on. And we kind of made this like big template of content on the site, so we could see all the different pages and like everything that's on these different pages, and there are many pages for this site, and how we might like actually simplify the process. We did things like voting on what to get rid of, voting on priorities. We talked, we had group discussions, we kind of added ideas in like little sticky notes so that we could see, you know, okay, that person had a really great idea, we could put that piece of content here, for example, or we could get rid of this. And then that helped me then go and do my whole content design thing and strip back the website and refresh it and create that sort of new look and feel and simplified version that everyone really wanted. So if you wanted to run a workshop for a content audit, I would say keep it fairly small. I would say maybe have like the couple of clients, maybe a designer in there as well, maybe some content editors, so like maximum 8, but try and go even lower than that. Use a software like FigJam or Miro that's collaborative, that, you know, people can throw ideas out or vote in, because they're super fun. Provide snacks, always provide snacks. This one was virtual, but if you're going to do it in person, it can be even more fun and engaging, because you can just like draw on stuff and get a big whiteboard up, and it's also nice to just like be with the team. So that's my tip if you're wanting to run a content audit workshop. Okay, we've got to tip number 5. This is how I run a content audit process, and this is my secret weapon to a killer website, because it is actually not that hard to run a content audit. Okay, let me take that back. It is not that hard to run a content audit when the website doesn't have that many pages, like under 20. It is very tricky when there's many pages, because it's going to take a lot of time. So my first just little pointer is that don't expect a content audit process to just like be done in a day. If your website has loads of content, loads of different pages, it's gonna get a little bit, you know, scramble your brain a little bit, because there's so much information that you're gonna have to sift through every page and kind of go and add it to your list, and then also like bear in mind the content, and, you know, but don't let that put you off. If you're working with a big client, it's definitely possible. You just might take a little bit longer or need another pair of hands. But basically, you want to be using a tool. As I said, I use Figma, or if I'm doing a workshop, FigJam or Miro. And you want to start creating this list of components. And when I say components, I mean all the different types of content on the website. Like, let's start with navigation. So you have your menu at the top, list out the items in the navigation. So it might be about page, it might be contact, shop, book, whatever it is, products, you know, list that out, get that in there. And then a separate one would be maybe blog pages. So you might want to create a list of all the blog pages you've got. There might be hundreds. I'm working with a client that's got like literally over 500 blog posts. Then you want to kind of list out anything else on the site. So it might be like contact form, mission, all the different elements. And depending on how you want to do this, you can either break it down page by page, or you can break it down into like individual content components. So you might want to make a list of the individual components as well as the pages. So that's just like a little bit of a tip. And that can be super helpful when you're thinking of like, okay, what new components do we need to build? And thinking about the content design, like, are these the right type of components for the user? Like, do these content formats make sense. You also want to record something about the content hierarchy. So like, what is the customer journey? Where does the customer start on the site? So for example, they land on the homepage or whatever it is, they go to the navigation, the menu, they click on one item in the navigation, and then they go to a product page or a blog post or, you know, a contact form. Like, what is the hierarchy there? So you want to be sort of like writing numbers next to these content pieces and just making sure that you understand the order of the flow of the customer journey. And this really helps you show the relationship between two different things, between the content items. So for example, if you've got like your if you've got sort of a like comparison table, for example, that then links to a product page, like you need to show that there's a relationship between those, so that the customer sees the comparison and then goes to that product page. Or it might be they read the product information and then they click like add to basket. So that's those two different components have a relationship. So you might want to group them like that. And just keep going until you've written down every single thing on the website, like no stones left unturned. That is the key to a great content audit, is being super, super detailed and thorough. So while this process might sound a little bit tedious, I promise you, it's actually quite fun, especially if you're like me and you enjoy sort of like researching, you enjoy thinking about, you know, does this piece of content work? Like what, you know, where you can go really big on this is also the SEO. You can go and start looking at the performance of each content item if you've got the analytics available or an analyst. And you can be like, is anyone even using this tool? Is anyone even reading halfway down the page? Is anyone even getting to the footer to sign up to the email? Is anyone like actually clicking on this blog post, reading it, and then visiting the site that we're sharing in this post? Like, do you know what I mean? So you can start to really get into the SEO and be like, what is actually performing really well for the website and what isn't, and you'll know like from the user needs whether a piece of content is performing well or not, because they'll be using a lot of it and they'll be, you know, ticking those boxes off. So this is going to help you make good design decisions and good sort of content decisions when you're coming to redesign a website. And it might take a little bit of a long time to do, especially if you're working with a really content heavy website, but I promise you, with enough patience and practice and consistency, you're going to get a great result. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you drop any questions in the comments. I'll be sharing the links to any references or tools that I've mentioned below. But anyway, thank you for joining. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you in the video.